Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I wanted to share some quick tips, or a quick tip here, on how I got all of these market plants started and how I get them started easily and how I save myself time underneath our little shade cloth, because we've had some brutal heat from the beginning of May up until the end of June here. So some brutal abnormal heat on all of our plants. I wanted to share with everyone how I'm getting these started and how I'm saving myself some time when I'm starting them. This is Siberian curly kale. So this is basically a perennial kale, and it will survive all winter and it'll go to seed next summer for us, as opposed to basically throwing them all into individual cells like all of these plants at the beginning of our market plant setup here. I take all of my seeds here. I've got some of my seed boxes out in the greenhouse with me. Got my Siberian curly kale. So I will take these and I will just broadcast them into a flat that has one or two little holes for drainage, so when it rains they don't get flooded out, so they can filter some of that water through and not be completely soggy and kill off all of our baby roots that are susceptible to high moisture levels. So I just broadcast all of these kale seeds in here. I don't know, we got 200-300 seeds that had popped up for us, and I had just broadcast them in. Very simple to do. Left these in the greenhouse in some shade for about a week. Once they popped through, I threw them outside. You could see they were getting kind of leggy because they had popped up in the greenhouse, but in the sunlight they had actually started to harden off a little bit, and they are definitely more hardened off than they were sitting in the greenhouse. So getting some direct sunlight was beneficial to these, and I am able to basically transplant all of these up, get a tray here. I'll basically be able to take all of these and lay out all of my little pots and fill them with our nice compost and potting mix here, and I will basically just fill all my pots out and plug a little hole, as opposed to putting all of these in individual cells, which can be very tedious, planting one seed in each cell. This way I can just basically pick them out as I go, and they will continue to develop in here without having negative effects of being in such a small cell like some of our little individual 1x1 cells here. So I can really multiply the amount of seeds I can sow in this smaller flat and basically just propagate them out into many flats in a shorter amount of time. So I don't have to wait for them all to develop in their cells till the roots are developed. I can throw these right in a pot, let them grow in the pot they're going to be sold in, or these little 3 to 4 inch pots are good to plant right in the ground. So I can let them develop for a week or two, and then we have an absolute ton of kale we can sow out into our garden and have a nice hardened off plant, so we don't have to worry about sowing individual seeds and having pests eat them or our rabbits eating them when they are such small plants like this. So they're nice and protected. I can move this whole flat in one go and just keep it protected wherever I want it. I can put it outside into the sun, let all these harden off. And I found this to be much easier than sowing into individual cells, because all of these cells will be plugged out into these pots anyways, or larger pots depending on what we are sowing and if we're selling them or if we're planting them for ourselves. I can basically just disrupt the soil here, and then you've got a decent root system, a little leggy on the plant, but I can bury this up 3/4 of the way and I will have a nice developed hardy plant that can go in the ground for me without too much work. This is much simpler than having all of my individual cells, and it takes up a lot less space because all of these can go right outside the greenhouse and I don't have to have all this cluster. This little greenhouse gets very full on me very quick, so I do not have a whole lot of room. I just propagated a whole bunch of native elderberry that we had found growing in one of our pine trees, so I'm trying to get all of that growing. Very good to have our bird friends, because they had dropped all these elderberry seeds into our pine tree and this started growing. So now I have all of these plus about double sitting in my refrigerator ready to get propagated out. Also, I wanted to share this simple technique for pricking out these little seedlings and having a lot more room to work. I have all of these compacted plants and I can pick them out as I please. I don't have to worry about them overgrowing their space too quickly or running out of room in their little individual cells. These I can wash in water if they get too big and basically rinse the roots free of each other so they do not tangle up, and it is much simpler to perform transplants this way. And I find this much simpler to transplant my plants because I don't have all of those individual cells I have to plant up. Planting all the individual cells is very tedious for me, and saving time is money for me, because the more plants I can get propagated faster and into larger pots quicker is definitely beneficial to the business, because I can get them out and get them ready, get them hardening off, and they're in a fully developed pot where they can be sold, and this is the last pot they will go in. They don't have to go from a cell to a pot, and it definitely saves me time and money on soil when I am doing this also. That is why I bulk my soil out with our compost and fully finished compost and sifted, because we don't want huge chunks of wood or unfinished compost that could be high in nitrogen. That's why we use our finished compost and we sift it to get all of those large chunks out. And I find that with both methods, I have about the same success rate. So if I can save myself a lot of time and money by mass sowing seeds into a flat, I am going to do it this way as opposed to sowing them in individual cells.